What should Israel be doing now? People ask the question. Well, I want to just quote, being this is my life, Chassidus applied, my Rebbe, our Rebbe, who spoke about similar events in the past. It's very clear. We are lovers of peace. We are lovers of love, of life. Ubacharta b'chaim, v'chai b'hem. Teiras chayim, chayenu v'erech yamein. It's all about life. V'atem advekim b'Hashem l'keichem, chayim kulchem hayeh. It's love, life. But God did create a world, in this world, where there's also the option, sadly, people can choose darkness. He says, I've given you two paths. And people have chosen darkness and chosen death over life. They've chosen crime over peace and most violent and inhumane of ways. So the strength we talked about, the connection to light. But when you ask what to do, it's not because we want to do it, but you have to do it. If God forbid an infection enters in a person's body and you nip it in the bud, you can prevent who knows what kind of sorrow and havoc that would come. If you don't, it grows into a cancer. Unfortunately, that is what's happened. I'm not going to make a blanket statement that every Muslim and every Arab is ready to kill every Jew. But philosophically and ideologically, they're sympathetic to the war of the radical Islam against Israel, against the Jewish people. We'll talk about that also as well in this program and other programs. And most importantly, they declared war. It's clearly stated in the Constitution what their goals are. Literally, not part of Eretz Yisrael, all of Eretz Yisrael to take over and eliminate every Jew. And some quote the Quran that says it explicitly. So without comparing, but the fact that Christians for almost 2,000 years terrorized and persecuted Jews for their distorted reasons, that's exactly what's been happening. And never has there been a letdown. There may have been some peace treaties signed, but we have to know where that will go, what other intentions, what other happens. But overall, this has been a declaration of war. When you're dealing with an enemy, you don't have to wait for the enemy to attack you. Now when you exposed, you have to cut off a serpent at its head. Let me put it very bluntly. Or if not, it will come back to bite you. If you have a neighbor, an individual, you have a neighbor that has declared war on you, and they attack you not every day, every few months, every few years, doesn't matter how often. And then they say, just give me a little piece of the living room. You say, you know what, I'll give it to them, they'll leave me alone. But they're your enemy. And then they attack you in a way like we just saw. God forbid, I don't mean you, anybody, should never happen to anyone. I just want to drive the point home on a personal level. What do you think you do? You don't negotiate, there's nothing to talk about. You don't destroy half of them, you destroy all of them, because you just don't want to have this threat on your doorstep. In the past, that did not happen. Perhaps the wishful thinking, the hope that things will balance, that the military deterrent will cause them to have to make peace. But you have to understand this is deeply ideological. It's rooted. Children are being educated. Mothers and fathers are teaching their children that being a martyr and killing a Jew is a mitzvah. I don't want to use that word, but in their words, it's what God wants. So you're not dealing with just, okay, since you're ready to kill me, I'm not going to do it. For them, martyrdom is part of the so-called sanctifying God, Allah, in their minds, their words. So how to fight that religious battle and how to fight the ideological is a discussion, which has to be had because that's the root of it. But right now, practically, you're uprooted in all possible ways. The fact that they surround themselves with millions of civilians and want the civilians to go down with them, so you try to minimize it as much as possible without being a danger to yourself. And hopefully Israel is doing that. But the resolve should not end. The concern many have is that now the sympathies of the world are still with Israel, at least to some extent. Israel itself is mobilized after what they've seen, the sheer number, and their hostages. So the concern would be that this passion will dissipate, and people will say, okay, not that we'll forget, but it won't have that same thrust. We sure hope that's not the case. Because this is not an emotional reaction alone. This is also knowing that you have to cut out the cancer. You think anybody wants to take chemotherapy or destroy healthy cells together with bad cells? We have no choice. It's the only way to save the body. So we don't do it with glee. We do it with necessity. It's a surgical process, cutting out the evil and never allowing it again to affect you. So I think anyone sound-minded, any decent civil person without other calculations, political and agendas or anti-Semitic sentiments, understands that. I'm not a military strategist. I can't say exactly how to do it. I just hope Israel is doing it. From our point of view, we need to have the clarity so we can communicate it to people, because the war is not just on the military front, it's also a war of ideas, a propaganda war. In the media, social media, individuals. And many people feel weak. People tell me they don't know what to answer. So that weakens the commitment. We know this is wrong, but I don't always have what to say exactly. When they say the Israelis are perpetrators, occupiers, the colonialization, etc., which we'll talk about hopefully as well. Again, either in this program or others, because there's so much to talk about and there's limited time. I'm creating many, many videos in addition to the program here. I'm trying to sum up the main themes, the main issues to address. But what should Israel be doing? As I said before, a battle is fought on many fronts. And the question that was asked, what should we learn from Jacob when he prepared to confront Esav? So it tells us in Parsha Vayishlach what he did. He prayed, he prepared a bribe to appease, and then he prepared for war. In his case, the first two are enough. But you have to cover all your bases. You never know. When he sent the malachim, his messengers or angels, to go check out where Esav is standing, he saw that he's ready to go to war. So he had to prepare himself. So we prepare on all levels. So while we're also fighting the military side, we also have the spiritual side. When I say spiritual, I also include psychological. Informing people, giving them the strength, knowing that we will prevail, and we have prevailed. Don't be afraid. Remember, a military that's fearful and in panic cannot really fight properly. So the morale, the psychological, emotional fortitude is just as important as the weapons and the munition and all the military strategies. And that's part of what we need to be doing as well. We have family members, we have friends. So we have to continue strengthening each other and say, yes, there's a challenge, but we're a mighty ship. Am Yisrael Chai, we are connected to the deepest eternal things. We brought beauty to this world that has transformed it forever. So we go and we march with that banner in hand and knowing we will prevail.